May 13th, 1985. A helicopter hovers over a row house in Philadelphia. Minutes later, a device drops onto the roof. The fire is allowed to burn. On Osage Avenue, the streetlights are still on, and the first light of morning is flat and gray. The row houses sit shoulder to shoulder, brick faces in a straight line, small stoops, short iron railings, curtains still drawn. The neighborhood is quiet in the way a city block gets quiet before something heavy arrives. Then the block fills with uniforms. Police trucks idle at the corners. Officers move in groups, helmets on, long guns held low, radios crackling. Firefighters wait farther back, their engines staged like they are waiting for permission to exist. City officials stand near a command post, papers in hand, watching the house at the center of it all. The target is a single row house that has been at war with its neighbors in the city for years. The people inside call themselves Move. They live by rules that reject modern life, reject government authority, reject compromise. They broadcast their beliefs through loudspeakers. They argue with police, with courts, with anyone who tells them to stop. The city has heard the complaints, and the city has made its decision. Arrest warrants are ready. The neighborhood has been evacuated. Doors up and down the block are closed, not because residents feel safe, but because they were told to leave. A bullhorn message carries down the street. The words are formal and final. Come out. Surrender. This ends now. Minutes are offered. Then the plan turns hard. Water cannons hammer the front of the house. Tear gas is fired. Smoke pours from windows and cracks. Gunfire answers from inside. The sound is sharp, then continuous, then numbing. It echoes off brick and glass and parked vehicles. People behind the police line flinch without moving, like their bodies want to run, but their jobs say stay. The standoff lasts hours. Officers fire thousands of rounds. The air turns metallic and dusty. A street that looked ordinary at dawn now looks like a battlefield built on a residential block. Around midday, the plan changes. City leaders and commanders talk in tight circles. A rooftop structure on the Move house has become a problem, a bunker-like platform built for defense and visibility. It will not come down with water. It will not come down with shouting. In the mind of the operation, it is the thing that needs to be removed, the obstacle between the city and a clean ending. So, the city authorizes something that sounds impossible when you say it out loud. An explosive will be dropped from a helicopter onto a row house. The helicopter circles. It is loud enough to erase conversation. Below it, officers and officials look up, then back at their watches and their radios. Someone gives a final approval. The device is released. It hits the roof and explodes. The blast does not end the fight. It starts a fire. At first, it is localized, a violent flare at the top of one building. Flames lick the roofline and crawl toward the neighboring structures. Smoke thickens. Heat rolls down the street in waves. This is the moment where the story could have turned. Fire crews are there. Hoses are there. Water is there. The city has a chance to contain what it has created. Instead, the fire is allowed to burn. The decision is explained later as tactical. Let the fire destroy the rooftop bunker, then push gas into the structure, then force the occupants out. But fire does not follow tactics. Fire follows fuel. A row house is fuel. A row of row houses is a single, continuous body of fuel. The flames move laterally. They find attic spaces and shared walls. They jump from roof to roof. The block begins to light up like a fuse. Residents who were forced out earlier stand behind police barriers, watching the place they lived become a furnace. Some hold car keys and nothing else. Some hold a bag that was meant for an evacuation that would last a few hours. They stare at the fire with a face that does not know how to process a government decision that has become a neighborhood-wide catastrophe. Firefighters are ordered back. The engines wait while the heat intensifies. When the fire is finally attacked, it is already running through multiple homes. Water streams arc into smoke, but the brick shells keep burning from the inside. By nightfall, the scene looks unreal. A long stretch of the block is engulfed. The glow reflects on helmets and windshields. The air is filled with ash. A city street has been turned into a controlled burn that is no longer controlled. When the smoke thins, the cost becomes visible. 11 people inside the move house are dead. 2 city blocks are scarred. Dozens of homes are destroyed, and families who live there are displaced. A neighborhood that had its own routines is reduced to a line of charred shells and piles of wet debris. It is not only the destruction that shocks people. It is the fact that the destruction came from the city itself, planned, executed, and then left to spread. In the first hours after the fire, official language starts moving. Statements are drafted. The emphasis is on danger, on the difficulty of the standoff, on the need to enforce the law. The bombing is described as necessary. The decision to hold back firefighters is framed as unavoidable. But the images do not match the language. A helicopter above a residential roof. Flames running down a city block. A police operation that looks like war. Philadelphia is forced into an investigation because there is no other way to contain the story. Mayor Wilson Goode appoints a special commission to examine what happened and why. The commission becomes known simply as the Move Commission. Its work is methodical. It interviews participants, reviews records, and reconstructs the chain of decisions that led to the bomb and the fire. In hearings and documents, the story becomes less like a sudden disaster and more like a slow escalation that no one stopped. Move had been in conflict with city authority for years before this day. In the late 1970s, there was a major confrontation at another location in the city, a standoff that ended in gunfire, injuries, and a police officer dead. Several Move members were convicted and sent to prison. The wounds from that clash never closed. For the police, for the city, for Move supporters, for the neighbors who lived near each confrontation. By the early 1980s, Move members were living in West Philadelphia, in a row house setting that was never designed for a group that wanted to be separate from everyone around them. Complaints continued. Neighbors reported noise and harassment. The house was fortified. The relationship between the block and the city became a countdown. That countdown reached 0 on May 13th, when the city arrived with warrants and a plan that assumed escalation, and then kept escalating until a line most people did not know existed was crossed. The commission report is blunt about what it finds. It criticizes city leadership. It criticizes police tactics. It describes the decision to drop a bomb on an occupied house as unconscionable. It describes the overall operation as reckless and poorly conceived. It argues that the use of force went beyond what was justified. The report does not bring criminal charges. It does not send city leaders to prison. It does not rebuild the neighborhood. It does something smaller, and in a way more brutal. It puts the failure into an official record. Mayor Goode issues an apology after the report. The apology acknowledges that the city made decisions that led to deaths and devastation. But apologies do not return a burned block to the way it was. The legal system becomes the next arena. In the years that follow, lawsuits move through federal court. Survivors and relatives sue the city, arguing that the operation used excessive force and violated constitutional protections. Displaced residents seek compensation for the homes and lives that were destroyed. A federal jury orders the city to pay damages. One major award is $1.5 million to a Move survivor and families of people killed. Later, residents from the neighborhood win additional settlements for the destruction of their homes. Money moves, but accountability does not look like a verdict with a single name attached. Meanwhile, the physical neighborhood becomes a second disaster. The destroyed houses are rebuilt, but the rebuilding is plagued by defects and controversy. Residents return to homes that feel unfinished, fragile, and poorly constructed. The fire did not only erase a block, it replaced it with something unstable. The scars become structural. Decades pass, and the story refuses to stay buried. On anniversaries, the city replays the same images: a helicopter, a flash, smoke, fire, and a line of row houses burning in daylight. New reports and new investigations bring back old questions about how evidence was handled after the bombing and how the remains of victims were treated in the years that followed. Institutions and officials are forced to explain decisions that should have been settled long ago. In 2020, the Philadelphia City Council issues a formal apology, naming the bombing as a brutal attack carried out by the city on its own residents and acknowledging enduring harm. The words are late, but they are clear. Still, the question that hangs over Osage Avenue is not only what happened, but how it could happen. The operation had planners, commanders, advisors, and elected leaders. It had police and fire departments. It had cameras. It had time. It had opportunities to pause and reassess. Yet it moved forward step by step, and each step made the next one easier, until a bomb on a city block felt like a solution. Imagine the moment the fire is rising and the order comes to hold back the hoses. The firefighters stand with their hands on equipment designed to stop exactly this kind of thing. They wait anyway. The residents watch anyway. The officers watch anyway. In a modern American city, a decision is made to let a residential block burn. That is the human moment that never leaves. Not the explosion, but the choice after the explosion. The move bombing is often described as unique, but the mechanics behind it are familiar. A group is labeled as a threat. A neighborhood becomes a stage. A crisis is framed as a test of authority. Escalation is justified as necessary, then normal, then inevitable. And once it is over, the story becomes a fight over language. Was it law enforcement, or was it warfare? Was it a tragic accident, or was it a predictable outcome? Was it a failure of a single commander, or a failure of a system that made every warning feel optional? Philadelphia has never been able to answer those questions in a way that satisfies everyone, because the evidence points in too many directions at once. It points at MOVE and its refusal to comply. It points at city leaders who chose escalation. It points at a culture of policing that treated a row house as an enemy position. It points at a fire response that was subordinated to a tactical plan. The commission report gave the city a mirror. Court cases added legal conclusions. Apologies added political language. None of it can undo the image of a helicopter above a residential roof. So, the story ends where it began, above a quiet block that did not ask to be a battlefield. If a future standoff puts a city under pressure again, what will be remembered from this day? Will the lesson be restraint, or will the lesson be that the costs can be paid later? Who decides when a neighborhood becomes collateral? And who pays when the fire spreads?